California is the number one human trafficking. We get the number one phone calls into the National Human Trafficking Hotline for human trafficking of children because our laws are so lenient. Like if you were going to go to, say, Texas or Florida and you knew that you could go to prison for buying giving somebody down the street, $500 for a 10-year-old, and you knew you were going to go to prison and have to explain that to your wife or your business or your job or whatever, you'd probably be risk adverse. You'd be like, yeah, I'm not going there. But if you come to California and you give some guy $500 to have sex with a kid, it was a misdemeanor, a little ticket. They give you a ticket if you got caught.
That's prior to SB 14, correct?
That's prior to SB 14 and 1414. There's two bills.
Yes.
One went after the seller and one went after the buyer.
So let's say prior to SB 14 and SB 1414, if, for instance, if I sell, God forbid, my own daughter to another male, what's going to happen to me? And I got caught. Before. And I got caught.
Before. It was a felony, but it wasn't a strikeable offense. It wasn't a strike. So if it was your first offense, you could probably get sentenced to 4 years and get out in 2. If it was your second offense, you could probably get sentenced to 8 years and get out in 2. So it just depends on the sentencing portion of it. 14, if you sold a child for sex, if you do it now, you're going to prison for at least 12 years on your first offense. You're going to register as a sex offender and you're going to pay a fine. If it is your second offense, you are going to go to prison for 24 years. And I'm going to keep you away from society because I don't want you to sell children for sex.
Okay, if I bought a child and had sex with him.
Okay, so
prior to SB 14.
Prior to SB 14, so take one of those out. If you engage in solicitation, hey, you sell that 10-year-old to me and I'll give you $100 or $500. I want them dressed in Minnie Mouse clothes. I want whatever.
Stop it.
I'm giving you complete examples of what our law enforcement partners, and I read those exact words between a perpetrator and a guy that was selling a 10-year-old. I read that. They wanted him dressed up like that. They wanted him to show up in a certain way. He asked about flavors of stuff. It was the most disgusting stuff I'd ever read in my entire life. And you cannot ever take those memories and those things that you saw that were happening to these kids before this bill. Okay. Those things, it was there. Our law enforcement partners, because our colleagues on the other side of the aisle would go, it's just words. And the law enforcement department would give us a big binder and they're like, read this. This is the words they're saying. And the victim was 10, the perpetrator was 36, the vendor, the seller was 44, and it gives you all the information and you just read it and it makes you sick to your stomach, like sick to your stomach. If you engaged in solicitation, the negotiation of the deal before SB 1414, it was a misdemeanor.
What does it mean?
It means that you could possibly get 2 days in jail, long enough to explain to your wife where you've been, and that's it. We went in trying to make it a strike and a felony, making you go to prison. We wanted you to spend 4 years in prison, okay? Right now, before 1414, it was 2 days in jail.
But that's just for buying, right?
For the buying piece.
But if a person would have had sex with a minor.
That's a separate code section.
Separate code, okay,
and
gotcha.
It is
just
a felony to do that.
Bought but did nothing.
Yeah, but bought and, I don't know. Okay, I guess.
Bought and got caught before
Bought
sex
and got
act.
caught but let's just be real, right? If you're going to negotiate a deal and shell out money and show up at a hotel room to have sex with a 10-year-old, I don't think you're going to just go, oh, I changed my mind.
Correct.
It's going to happen.
It's disgusting.
So my whole purpose of this was to stop it before it traumatized the child.
Correct.
Like, you're already negotiating the deal. You already are committing this horrific act by negotiating this deal and paying for it and demanding all these other things in exchange for your money, and then you show up. I don't want that child traumatized. I don't want to wait. I wanted that purchase piece to be the felony. This is already a felony, but I would rather stop it before it harmed the child. So that was the whole premise behind 1414, was to get him in the solicitation piece.
What were the amendments? Why did they fight so hard back?
You'll have to ask them, because I would never in a million years think it would be this hard to protect people from that horrific act, right? I never. A lot of pushback. They didn't want to cover 16 and 17-year-olds because they felt like they were old enough to make their own decision.
Age of consent in California is 18 years old?
Yes. But they didn't want to cover Senator Aisha Wahab out of Hayward, made us take an amendment that didn't cover 16 and 17-year-olds.
Yeah, but this is not prostitution, right? This is selling.
Yes.
You can sell 16-year-old or 36-year-old.
Well, so we went in covering everybody, labor trafficking and sex trafficking,
Correct.
no matter what age.
Correct.
And they're like, no, it's too broad. It covers way too much. You have to take it to minors only. So then, just like you said, we were talking a minute ago about the abortion thing, like 24 weeks versus full term. Do you walk away and not protect minors because you can't protect adults, or do you get minors and go back after to protect adults? Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You have to make decisions, and they're hard decisions, because in the audience of all of our human trafficking survivors, I had a 17-year-old that went down on a full ride scholarship down to Costa Mesa, 2-parent family from Northern California, gets down to the LA Orange County area, says she falls in love. The guy was, he targeted her. He picked her up, and then she's 17 and a half, and he says, let's go to Vegas. I love you. Her parents say, don't do it. She waited a couple of weeks till she turned 18, went to Vegas. It took her several months to get back, and she was brutally tortured.
By him or by others? He was selling her?
He was selling her. So I wanted her protected, right?
Of course.
I wanted the 30-year-old that grew up in the foster care system, which a large portion of these individuals are targeted and they're traumatized as a child through the foster care system, trafficked. There was a case that we were just trying to help a young girl, 17 years old, that was trafficked by her foster parents since she was 13. So these are kids with trauma that turn into adults with trauma. And I wanted to make sure anybody that was in this world that had no control, it's modern day slavery. If I tell you where to eat, where to go, who to see, when you can, take a shower, that's control of someone else. And I wanted anybody, regardless of their age, protected. But the first bill died completely in 3 years ago or 4 years ago. The first bill died completely. And then we came back with 14. We wanted to cover everybody, either labor trafficked or sexually exploited. They forced amendments on us in this Aisha Wahab in public safety from Hayward, forced amendments on us to only cover minors, 17 and below. And then when we got to the assembly, and then we had them register as a sex offender, but they took that out for the first offense. And their argument to me was, if you require somebody to register as a sex offender, it will ruin their life.
That's the purpose of it. You think twice before
you do it again. What about the kid's life the person's life you just wrecked? So anyways, all of that to say that we got the bill out. 17-year-olds and younger covered. Second offense would be a sex registry. You had to pay a fine, and it was a strike offense. So if you have a previous offense, you could go to prison for 24 years, right? We keep you locked up and away from society and protect children.
All right, so if
because before, so to give people a real gist, before you could go to prison for selling a child for sex, and then that child be 12, and you could get out in 4 years and go find that child again at 16, and you've already traumatized that child. They see you walking down the street, you're going to create more trauma. So.
But if they stop at the certain age, let's say 16 or 17 is good, younger than 16 or 17 years old are bad. So let's not stop at the age. Let's even go further. Whites are available, blacks are not available. Mexican, Latinos, that's the same thing. Age-wise, race-wise,
they made all
education-wise. You're not educated, you can be sold.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Their argument, they're like, they kept coming after me like, you're just going after, I had these were in the dais, you can watch the hearing stuff. You just are targeting people of color in the LGBTQ community. And I'm like, only if they're selling children for sex, right? The bill applies to everybody equally. It applies to, it don't matter what color your skin is or what your socio-disadvantaged community is or your wealth is. It doesn't matter. If you're selling children for sex, I want you to go to prison.
Correct.
And if you're buying them, I want you to go to prison. So 14, the selling piece, we actually did get it over to the assembly. Then the assembly killed it. The governor, he did engage. He engaged, and because it was a nightmare, right? The media was all over it that they wouldn't protect kids from being sold for sex. So he engaged. He kind of played the card, forced them to take the bill back up. The same people who killed the bill on Tuesday passed it on Thursday. It got to his desk. He signed it. It's become law. 1414 went after the purchaser, the solicitor, the guy who made the deal, right, who was engaging in the purchase. It covered all minors. We went in again trying to get everybody covered, but it didn't work. They forced amendments on us to only include 15 and below. Their argument is that 16 and 17-year-olds that need an income would be out there on the street and they didn't want them harmed and put in jail. I said, I'm not trying to put minors in jail. I'm trying to put the perpetrator that's buying them
A pimp,
in jail.
basically.
The pimp or the purchaser. I mean, the pimp can sell them and you buy them. I want you both to go to prison. Sorry, but I do. I'm not sorry. I want you both to go to prison. So again, Aisha Wahab, the Bay Area, she forced amendments on us. And so then you make a split you have a minute to make a decision, right? Do you pull the bill and kill it and take your bill off the shelf? Or do you protect 15 and below? And then continue to fight for 16 and 17-year-olds. So they forced the amendments on it. So then I have a bill. I'm walking around saying I only want to protect 15-year-olds because nobody knows. If they read the bill, it's like she's only running a bill to 15 and below. But they don't know the process on how it got to that point. The average public member doesn't. And so we took the bill and we continued to fight. We pressured them in the media. We had a lot of media sources that helped us get the word out, saying, what is the purpose of this? Aisha, why are you doing this? Senator Wahab, yada, yada, yada. So there's a lot of pressure. It was in our favor that the individual that was in charge of public safety on the assembly side where the bill was going was running for mayor of Sacramento, Kevin McCarty. He was running for the mayor of Sacramento, which he is now the mayor. And we put a lot of pressure on him. Like we were going to we were just going to start, the media was out. Kevin McCarty doesn't support 16 and 17-year-olds being protected. He has the Stockton Blade right in his district. And so we started putting pressure on him. So then he, as a Democrat, put pressure on Aisha Wahab and the leadership and like, look, I have 16-year-old daughters. They wouldn't be protected under this. So he made common sense, decisions. And then they allowed us to put 16 and 17-year-olds back in. But they had to prove they were trafficked first. So then it goes back to your scenario. They have to prove that they were actually raped and trafficked in the hotel room or wherever, the back seat of the car, and then we could go after the guy that started everything and negotiated the deal to purchase them in the first place. So that's how the bill ended up. 15-year-olds, you're going to get a felony, a wobbler. Well, it's a wobbler. They turned it into a wobbler, meaning that it can be charged as a felony or a misdemeanor. Now, in my community, my district attorneys are going to put you in prison or jail. They want you.
Good for them.
Yeah. But, when we had Gascon in LA, there was no way I could probably protect those kids down on the Blade down there because he's never going to charge anybody. But now we have Nick Hockman, so I think he will do that. I mean, I know he will. He'll do it. So kids will be protected in certain areas of the states, but probably not in San Francisco, where they have the Tenderloin district where a lot of this takes place.
And once the bill passes 2 floors, the governor signs it.
He does.
So every time, both times Newsom went side, he was the good guy in the media.
So he, on 14, the selling piece, he actually engaged and kind of called out his people to say, you need to pass this bill. He did do that. I can tell you that Jennifer Newsom, the first partner, she was brokenhearted that this was happening in California, and she helped. She legitimately helped.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. She went down to Los Angeles and toured the Blade, and she was wrecked when she saw those little girls. It's just a slow driving car, and the girls get in, they go down the street, what they're doing, whatever, in the back seat, and they get out and they go back to the first of the line, and it's like an all day. It's like it takes you 20 minutes to get through it's horrible. These little girls that are down.
What is that? Downtown?
In Los Angeles, downtown on the Blade on Figueroa Street. Just drive down there one day. It'll blow your mind. It's crazy. It's something like you've never seen. And the gangs control it. Police don't go down there. They don't enforce anything. It's all controlled. It's almost like a third world country. It actually is a disgrace to third world countries. It's not like it's just the most horrific thing you've ever seen in your life.